We're ready for the start. They're off.
Hey everybody, it's Friday in the big city. That means it's time for First Call. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk to handicap the weekend stakes races for you for First Bet and Express Bet. Want to welcome you into the podcast where we're going to take a look at 8 stakes races today. Big day at Laurel Park on Saturday. Huge kickoff to the Louisiana Derby Series with the LeCompte and a big undercard at Fairgrounds on Saturday. We've got the Astra Stakes out west at Santa Anita. So a good slate of action this weekend, Jeff Siegel. And tell me, no rain out there, right?
No, are you kidding? I mean, it's beautiful. We've had our rain. I think the next rain we'll see might be in November. So I think we're out of that series of storms we've had. It's beautiful out here, and the track is fast out here at Santa Anita. So looking forward to that. Also looking forward to some great racing at Laurel Park. I was going over the card there. Several stakes races, most of them with big fields. Fairgrounds, of course, is loaded as well. So a lot of the gambling action will go to those two tracks. But we have good racing at Santa Anita as well, and Gulfstream as well. So we'll be busy. If there's a winner out there, we're going to try to find it somewhere and make the weekend profitable. I think we can do that.
There'll be coast-to-coast pick 5 wagers on Saturday and Sunday. Gulfstream and Santa Anita teaming up their 5 races. I'll give you a quick look here on my little cheat sheet card. Santa Anita will start the coast-to-coast pick 5 on Saturday in race number 3. Races 3, 6, and 8 from Santa Anita. Races 9 and 11 from Gulfstream. That's the Saturday coast-to-coast pick 5. You can play with First Bet and Express Bet and get a $10 free wager when you play with those ADW platforms. And then on Sunday this weekend, the coast-to-coast pick 5 returns. It'll be Gulfstream races 8, 9, and 10 from Gulfstream, and Santa Anita races 3 and 5. Jeff and Brian Nato will have handicapping videos available on social media over the next couple of days for those coast-to-coast pick 5s as you're getting set for that. Speaking of Brian Nato, he's in the crosshairs this week, too, in the Express Bet Beat the Hose competition. Brian's got 10 races from Gulfstream and Santa Anita that he'll handicap and take you on. If you beat his dollar amount, you can win your share of $60,000 in weekly and seasonal prizes and qualify for the Beat the Hose Championship round. I think there are 330 people, something like that, have qualified now for the Beat the Host Championship round. But there's only, I think, about 20-some left who could possibly sweep the host and win that $6,000 bonus. So we're whittling them away between myself and Billy Ball over the first 2 weeks. We'll see what Brian does this weekend in the Beat the Host competition. Jeff, you're up in I believe, next week for the week of the Pegasus World Cup and Beat the Host. So, I don't know, hit the weights, go jog around the block a little bit. You better get ready, man.
I'll be ready. I'll be prepared, and Gulfstream is going to give me plenty of time to do that. They'll be drawing early for the big races next weekend. So no excuses on my part. I will be ready. I have to deliver, but I will.
You can check out a wager guide for the Pegasus World Cup. Go to first.com or news.first.com and check out the links to the Pegasus World Cup wager guide. We'll have plenty of information for that. And as Jeff mentioned, they are entering early for the Pegasus Sunday. They're entering the full card for next Saturday. So a lot of time to dive in, get the past performances, get into some replay study and all of that. But before Sunday's draw, we've got a big stakes slate for Saturday, January 21st. We'll take a look on this podcast at the Fireplug Stakes, the What is Summer, and the Spectacular Bid. 3 of a handful of stakes that they'll have Saturday at Laurel Park. Then the Fairgrounds will take a look at 3 of another big handful of stakes races they have on the LeCompte Stakes Day card. The Silver Bullet Day for the 3-year-old fillies going towards the Fairgrounds Oaks. The Louisiana Stakes for the older horses going towards the New Orleans Classic. And then, of course, the LeCompte, one of the preps towards the Louisiana Derby. And, of course, Kentucky Derby points qualifying on the line this weekend. We'll look at the LeCompte as well. At Gulfstream Park, we're to the turf for the Sunshine Turf on Saturday for our analysis, and we'll wrap things up at Santa Anita with the Astra Stakes final race in this podcast, but that will be the Express Bet race of the week. I've already done some work on the Astra. Fingers crossed, we hope to keep a good run going in that Express Bet race of the week space, about $1,700 in profits over the last 3 weeks. So maybe the Astra Stakes, Jeff. I know ahead, you sent me your pick ahead of time for some prep here. We're in the same boat, so let's keep swimming. Let's have a good weekend. We'll talk about the Astra Stakes at the end of the podcast. Time now to hit things up at Laurel Park, though. Our first handicapping treat of the weekend is the Sixth race on the card, it's the Fireplug Stakes, named for the 28-time winner sprinter who was just great. He won races from 3 to 7 in the Mid-Atlantic. Fireplug was a great sprinter, late 1980s. The race in his name would have to be 6 on the main track, but they went 6.5 and just threw an extra half furlong. Jeff, Fireplug Stakes, we got a rematch, 1, 2, 3 finishers of the Dave's Friend Stakes. Do you see something out of there or someone else?
Well, I actually went with a horse that I'm not even sure is going to run. That's the problem. Number 8, Pirate Rick, who has won his last 3, come down from the Aqueduct. Actually had a bullet breeze at Laurel last week, so I assumed he's here. And I don't know if he's still at Laurel because he was entered back in a race on Sunday at Aqueduct. So I'm not really sure where he's going to run. Norman Cash has got a couple of options there. If he runs, I like him. He's 8-1 in the morning line. But if he doesn't, if he goes back to New York and runs, then I like number 5, Factor It In. This is a 10-time winner in his career, but 7 out of 11 lifetime at Laurel. I'm always a sucker for horses for courses at Laurel, and here's a horse who's a very versatile type of horse. He can win on the lead or from off the pace, and a real pro and in form, triple-digit buyer in his most recent start at Laurel on the Dave's Friend, and I don't see any reason why he can't do it again. He's picking up a couple of pounds, but I don't think that's going to stop him, and I like the fact that he's got the proper style for the extra half furlong, and of course he ran well in New York before that in the fall high weight. So I think Factor It In is going to be probably the favorite, and I like him, and I'll use him for sure, but depending upon what Pirate Rick and his connections decide to do.
Pirate Rick's in good form right now for trainer Norman Ling Cash. Of course, Cash had Beverly Park, the frequent flyer of 2022, who ran so many times and won a bunch of them. Not quite the same season resume for Factored In or with Pirate Rick as we saw with Beverly Park, but he's been busy late in the year. A couple starts in December, now starting this weekend, whether it's at Aqueduct or whether it's here at Laurel Park. Let's go to the 7th race on the card Saturday at Laurel. It's the What a Summer Stakes, and What a Summer named for the 1976 Black-Eyed Susan winner. She won 18 races in her career for Leroy Jolly, so it's got nothing to do with the seasons because there's nothing summery about the weather at Laurel this weekend. But What a Summer was a really good filly and mare on the racetrack. And we've got fillies and mares sprinting 6 furlongs in here, Jeff, and a rematch of the Willa on the Move Stakes, which we saw here, where 4 of these runners, Don't Let Sweet Fool You, Sway and To and Fro, Fouette, and Fille d'Esprit, all come out of the same race. Jeff, this is another rematch.
Yeah, it is. And if you look at the video, and we want to sack Sway and To and Fro, really dominated that race, and if you watch the video, it's hard to imagine her getting beat by the same horses she just beat. Not only that, but she's in great form, won her last 2. How about this? I mentioned I like the horses for courses angle at Laurel. Yeah. She's won 6 out of 7, and her most recent race may have been her best. She was just absolutely dominating in the Willa on the Move.
Let's go take a look at that one with Dave Rodman on the mic.
3 furlongs from home, Sway in To and Fro, Don't Let Sweet Fool You, latched onto one another. In the meantime, Fouette is 2.5 to make up, and Fille d'Esprit is taken off the inside, asks for a full sprint home there from 4th, and Juror number 4 saving ground as they turn for home. Don't Let Sweet Fool You, Sway in To and Fro. Sway in To and Fro has more to offer down on the inside. Sway in To and Fro, very confident ride with a furlong left to go. Under Grant Whitaker kicking away almost 3 lengths now. From Don't Let Sweet Fool You is 2nd, and it's Fouette 3rd, and Fille d'Esprit, followed by Juror number 4, Sway and To and Fro. Ultra Sharp to win by 5 at the finish, and the Willa on the Move.
Not a bad claim for 16,000 out of the maiden claiming ranks back just in May of last year. Ran 12 times last year with 8 wins, Sway and To and Fro. Closed the year there on December 30th with that devastating move. Hard to imagine this one doesn't start 2023 the way she left the last calendar year.
Nah, based on that race, no. Career top 94 buyer number, winning with plenty left. Going to have to pick up 3 pounds. I don't think that's going to stop her. Again, I like her versatility where she can stalk, pounce, and go. She can be on the lead. She seems to have gotten better with every race, and there's no reason to think she won't continue to win, which is why she's 8-5 on the morning line, and I have to think she's going to go lower than that.
The fresh faces are the 3-4 finishers from the Garland of Roses at Aqueduct, Disco Ebo, and Snicket. Disco Ebo coming off that race when running third. Snicket came out of that race, though, and ran in a Lowndes Company. Couldn't do any better than third in there. So how strong was the Garland of Roses? Maybe not strong enough to upend the local star here, swaying to and fro. Let's go to the 8th race on Saturday at Laurel Park. It's the Spectacular Bid Stakes, a race that was inaugurated at Laurel in 2021. Of course, Spectacular Bid, Maryland based for Buddy Delp back in his heyday. One of the best horses ever to look through a bridle, as the famous quote from the trainer was. Spectacular Bid Stakes puts horses perhaps on the path towards the Preakness in Maryland. We still got a couple more one-turn races in Maryland before we stretch out around 2 turns in the private terms. Then we'll have the Federico Tessio, which will have a Preakness win and you're in connotation to it. The 1-2 finishers from the Heft Stakes last month are back in this one, Jeff. And an interesting race in the Spectacular Bid because 4 of 8 horses in this race are making trainer changes off of their most recent starts. So there's some question marks here.
There is, and it's kind of tough. And my biggest question mark is Prince of Jericho, who was 3-5 in that race you mentioned, and after winning his previous 2, and he was flat in that race and got beat by another horse named Coffee with Chris, who was kind of trying to get out in the final furlong, but still managed to hold sway and earned a good number. But I'm not sure about that race, and I'm not sure where Prince of Jericho is based on that disappointing run. Maybe he bled. He's adding Lasix, as most 3-year-olds now are going to be doing since they can run with Lasix at 3. I ended up going with Heldish, number 1 on the program. Another first-time Lasix, another one changing barns, now in the Mike Maker barn. Third last time out at Laurel back in mid-November behind Recruiter. Honeyquist, that was a live race. We know Recruiter is still undefeated, and he was chasing them. And although on pure buyer numbers or whatever numbers you may use, he's not as fast as the others. He is coming out of some really good races. And I think now as a 3, making his first start for New Connections off the bench, he probably will step forward. And from the inside draw going 7/8, he's got speed. He can be wherever he wants to be. 9-2 in the morning line, I think I'll take that. So I'm going to go with number 1, Heldish, to win the Spectacular Bid.
You mentioned he changes to Mike Maker. The reason for that, this horse was sold in December at the Timonium sale. I believe it's a new sale. I'm not used to seeing this in the past performances, but there was a December sale. This horse sold for $160,000 off a good 2-year-old form. Now goes to Mike Maker, but he keeps local. Brittany Russell had the training duties last year. We Don't Need Roads also was sold in that same sale for $100,000 and comes into this race now. Changed it over to Mark Salvaggio, the trainer, a veteran Penn National trainer, been around for decades. So a couple of these horses sold in December, now for New Connections appearing here in the Spectacular Bid Stakes. It's part of my Countdown to the Crown series. I've got a full preview on the Spectacular Bid, and we'll review it next week. Check out countdowntothecrown.com, and you can get this week's scouting report. We'll also have an in-depth look at the Lecomptons and maiden and allowance races for the 3-year-olds around the country. Let's go back to our schedule here on the podcast of stakes races as we shift from Laurel Park to Fairgrounds. Fairgrounds on Saturday has the big race as the Lecomte, the main event, but the supporting stakes on the undercard are awfully good and important as well. Let's start with the 12th race. We're going to look at races 12, 13, and 14 numerically on the card. The Silver Bullet Day Stakes, Jeff, this name for Bob Baffert's famed 1999 Kentucky Oaks winner. Silver Bullet Day was outstanding as a 3-year-old filly. This race will put 3-year-old fillies perhaps on the path to that very Kentucky Oaks that she won. Certainly the Fairgrounds Oaks would be in the crosshairs of these runners. Chop Chop's in here. I love this filly last year on Breeders' Cup Day in the juvenile fillies. I didn't think there was a way she was going to lose that day. She ran 13th, beating 14 lengths. So this game will humble you in a hurry when you get a little too confident. Is Chop Chop got a rebound in her, or are we looking at some other place?
I really wanted to try to beat her here because I felt the same way about her. When she got beat in nose in the Alcibiades by Wonder Wheel, I thought there was no way that Chop Chop wasn't best in that race, and there was no way Wonder Wheel was going to run back to that race in the Breeders' Cup, and I was wrong. So I can be wrong again, even though I am picking Chop Chop, but I didn't want to do it. But I couldn't find an alternative. I looked very closely at Forrest Chimes, who was a debut winner by more than 7 lengths on a wet track that they called good, but it looked more wet than anything else. She was 13-1 that day. I don't know whether the off-track moved her up, whether she just ran in on their connections, or whether she's just one of these fillies that does it in the afternoon. I wouldn't be shocked if she came back and did it again. She's 4-1. But if you look at Chop Chop, she'd won her first two. She'd won a stakes in her second start. Missed by a nose to the champ, the subsequent, or who will be the champion in Wonder Wheel, and then for whatever reason didn't fire at all. But she's back for Brad Cox. I'm going to assume that she's going to return to her best form, which, if she does, should be good enough. I don't know what price she'll be, probably shorter than what she's worth, but we'll find out if Chop Chop's going to be an important member of the 3-year-old filly division this year by how she does in her sophomore debut.
One to watch in here, if not Chop Chop getting back on her form, Heo Navano, the 3-horse in here. Sam David Jr. trains, and if that name rings a little bit of a bell, remember the great 3-year-old filly Blushing KD? He brought her out of this part of the country, a Kentucky Oaks winner. This one's got some talent about her, and David hasn't had a big horse in a while that he's going, into the stakes rank with her off of that maiden win in December. She showed speed in the Untappable, second time routing now, maybe her third time routing. If she can carry the speed a little bit further, there's no speed to the inside of her in the 1 and the 2. She'll get the rail run of it near the front, or if not on the front. Hey Navano for Sam David Jr. Interesting to me a little bit in the Silver Bullet Day. We'll see if lightning can strike twice. Some guys have a horse of a lifetime every week show up in their barn. Sam David has had one horse of a lifetime, Blushing KD. I mean, I'm not saying this is Blushing KD, but he might have a nice 3-year-old filly here.
Well, I think he'll probably try to put her on the lead, and then, because that's how she won her race. And if she can do that, we'll see.
Let's go to the 13th on the card at Fairgrounds on Saturday. This is the Louisiana Stakes, Grade 3, $150,000 prep towards the New Orleans Classic. Used to be called the New Orleans Handicap, but renamed in recent years the New Orleans Classic. A couple horses in here, certainly familiar to the Fairgrounds Stakes scene. And one that's familiar to Triple Crown fans, Zozos, Jeff. The return of Zozos. Second start off the layoff, had not been seen since the Kentucky Derby, but a nice allowance winner back on December 17th. Is that enough to get the Brad Cox trainee right back into the stakes mix?
It might, for sure. I had forgotten that this was the New Orleans Handicap at one time, and the reason why it brings a memory to me is because I actually won it back in '89 with a horse named Galba. But it kind of got lost in the shuffle among our partners because that's the same day Martial Law won the big cap. We just won the New Orleans Handicap. That's nice, but we won the big cap the same day, so kind of forgot about that. That was a day to remember. I can tell you that. Those were the good old days. But anyway, this race is a good race, and I'm looking at Zozos because he started off like he was going to be a really top horse. He won his debut in sprinting, came back and won a race by 10. He was well backed, went second in the Louisiana Derby behind Epicenter. That form looks pretty good. And then in the Derby, he was disappointing, although he was maybe not quite what we thought he was going to be. Comes back against older horses in a really nice allowance race here last month. Wins cleverly. I thought he won with something left. Earned not a career top buyer, but a very strong buyer. And I think he's going to step forward for Brad Cox. And even though he, again, tackling some seasoned older horses who are solid, very, very solid. Forza d'Oro on his best day. Brad Cox's other horse can be tough. But I think Zozos has got a chance, again, to be an important member of his division. He didn't quite make it last year. Maybe he will this year as an older horse, Son of Munnings. So I'm going to go with 3-1 on the morning line with Zozos to win the Louisiana Stakes.
There's not a lot of early speed in this race. Maybe Run Classic to 2, but I don't think that one's dead set to the front. Zozos made the lead in the Louisiana Derby last year. On these big race days, speed tends to hold pretty well. You get fast horses. They get the track fast. I would expect that speed is good on the day at Fairgrounds on the main track on Saturday. So Zozos probably goes right to the front under Corey Lannery from the outside. If not, sit second maybe behind Run Classic and really have every chance with that first over kind of trip. Let's talk Triple Crown Trail now. The Lecomte, 20 Kentucky Derby points on the line here towards for the winner towards the first Saturday in May. My own is 16 for the Lecomte Stakes here, Jeff, and they're calling you from Fairgrounds right now because they need your pick. Who do you like?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I always get the same call because they want to know do you really like the horse? I used to, people say, who's your best bet for the day? And I would say, all right, it was such and such. Do you really like him? And I'd say, no. What do you want from me? A guarantee, But anyway, no, it's a good race. I mean, it's going to be viewed here because it is an important a beginning type of race for 3-year-olds on the trail. And looking at this race, I had a hard time with this, Jeremy, and I know that you've looked at it, and I'm going to give you first crack at this one because I really want to know who you like. So I'll follow up after you tell me who you like.
Well, look, we talked about picks that go awry sometimes, and they're not the horses that you expect that they were on a particular day. We mentioned that earlier with Chop Chop. I was the same way with Instant Coffee and the Breeders' Futurity. I thought Instant Coffee was the horse off that Saratoga debut win, showed such patience coming through up on the inside. I thought Instant Coffee was the horse to beat and was pretty bullish on that runner in the Breeders' Futurity. It didn't work out that day. A decent effort when running fourth. Then you kind of forget about a 2-year-old Jeff when they don't go to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But they waited for the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill, and Instant Coffee was right back on his game. And he was the kind of horse there that I saw at Saratoga in the summer. And if he's that same kind of horse from 2 turning to 3, I think he's the best horse in this race. Let's look at his Kentucky Jockey Club, and I'd like to hear what you think about his chances in here and who you like.
They're racing for the 8th pole. Gigantes re-rallied, fighting on his Cyclone Mischief. Instant Coffee coming down the center. Red Route 1, and from the back of the pack, Dennington is on the scene as well. They're inside the final 16th. Instant Coffee comes away with the lead. Instant Coffee won it. A firing line in behind in the photo for the Miners. Curly Jack was there. Red Route.
So you heard Cyclone Mischief in that call. He's already come back to win a race. You heard Dennington in that call. He's back in the LeCompte. He sent us run a decent third in the Smarty Jones. So a fairly live edition, I think, of the Kentucky Jockey Club. And I'm confidently behind Instant Coffee in this spot. I think he's going to deliver. There's a decent amount of speed in this race, and horses who have questions at the distance, he gets to sit. He's a closer. I think he's going to take him down in the end. So Instant Coffee, may not be the biggest price, but that's the drink of the day.
Well, yeah. First of all, when I went back and watched the race, I was a little concerned because they all kind of finished in a heap. And when they do that, I mean, when you see 7 horses in the picture at the wire, you figure maybe it wasn't a great race. And maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it was better than the race would show. But I will say one thing about Instant Coffee. He lost so much ground in that race every step of the way. He got fanned out in the first turn. He was wide into the backstretch, wide in the far turn, wide in the stretch, and he was relentless. He just kept coming, and I like that about him. I mean, he didn't get any breaks in the race, and he still came home off slow fractions, so he had to quicken into the teeth of slow splits. I thought that was a better race than maybe the number would give it credit for, and I thought he ran really well. And I have a soft spot in my heart for Bolt d'Oro because I really loved him as a racehorse. He just happened to come along in the same year as Justify. But he was a very, very good racehorse, and he's actually been an outstanding young stallion. His first crop, now 3, and Instant Coffee, part of that. Great stakes winner, and I expect him to continue to develop based on what I saw. I think he's going to be a better 3 than he was as a 2, and if I'm right about that, he's going to beat this field. So I went with Instant Coffee at 5-2. I don't know whether he'll be 5-2 or not. I'd love to get it. I can tell you that. But we'll see what happens with regards to the wagering. But I expect him to step forward and beat this field.
You mentioned Sire Bolt d'Oro. If you like him, Bolt's got another one in here, Itzos, who just happens to be a half to Rachel Alexandra. So
right, but I don't think he's
like
running
Bolt
in this
d'Oro
race.
and you like Itzos will scratch out of here, you're hearing?
Yeah, he's supposed to run, I think, at Turfway, but that's what I read. But I'm going to watch him there. And maybe he can win there. So we'll see.
The other one for Paulo Lobo in here, Bromley, if they go ahead and bring this one, I think has an interesting chance in here on the stretch out. Son of Mastery. I think Bromley's got a shot in here towards the front. Echo Again, I'm not wild about this one routing. I think Echo Again's going to be better sprinting.
Well, I don't understand this because the evidence would strongly suggest that that's true. I mean, I loved his maiden win. He stopped in the Iroquois. We sent him down to Steve sent him down to Remington, made the lead. Mm-hmm. And I remember we talked about that race after the race was over, and we both said, okay, fine, Echo Again's a sprinter. That's what they'll keep him around one turn. That's where he'll excel, and but now he's back in a 2-turn race again. And I'm thinking, are we right or is Steve Asmussen right? I think I'm right. No, he should know his horse a lot better than I do. And if he thinks he can round, he's giving him one more chance. Maybe he will from the inside draw. But I want to see it because I certainly don't think that he's a 2-turn horse, at least at this stage of his career. I don't care if he's by gun runner or not. I think he's just a sprinter.
Yeah, and like they had the option of going at Oaklawn, going a flat mile and using the short stretch finish at the 16th pole. That would have been, to me, the place in the Smarty Jones to see if you could get 2 turns versus Fairgrounds, which just has that, conveyor belt stretch. You just keeps going and going and going in the stretch of Fairgrounds. So you got to earn it. If you're a little bit short on stamina, Fairgrounds stretch isn't a good place for you. So we're both against that runner. Let's go to the 6th race at Gulfstream on Saturday as we hit the final 2 stakes on the podcast. It's the Sunshine Turf. Florida Breds here, 75 grand, and a field of 7 in here, Jeff. I know you've got a horse who's been working that you want to take a look at named Roaring 40s.
Well, I think he's the controlling speed, and he breezed really well here. Now, I don't know whether Roaring 40s really wants to run long. He had one prior 2-turn race, and he made the lead and then got run over. But there is not much speed in this race, and you can see him breeze here, Jeremy. He is looking really sharp, really happy. He's going to get over from the outside draw without having to be sent, and he's going to be a decent price. So, he's a tough old 7-year-old gelding, but he's only had 23 starts. He's not over-raced. He won 2 races last year from 7, and he's coming out of some fast sprints up in Woodbine. So that's, to me, the gamble in the race. And Max KO probably will be tough to beat for Saffie Joseph. He looks like he's solid and is. But Roaring 40s, to me, has a chance maybe to wire the field at a price. So I'm going to try him and see how far he can carry his speed.
The field also includes Irad Ortiz and Bob Hess teaming up with Lure Him In, the defending champion in this race last year, but the form's a little more questionable towards the end of the year. Maybe some of that was the surface. Didn't like the Tapeta. Back on turf for Lure Him In. Could get that one back towards the winner's circle, too, after winning this race last year. Let's look at our 8th and final stakes race on Saturday. It's the $100,000 Astra Stakes at 1.5 miles on the turf at Santa Anita. Go down the hill and then make one lap proper of the course. Jeff, this is the express bet race of the week. I handicapped this one yesterday, and I came up with Australia Mia, and I know you did as well. This race part of the cross country or the coast to coast pick 5.
I didn't know anything about Australia Mia. There's very little to know about her. She's from Chile. I don't know her running style. I don't know anything about who she's beating or anything like that. Michael McCarthy gets it. This is a homebred, actually. Wasn't purchased to bring up here. But I think maybe the connections, Don Alberto's stable, they have a pretty good feel as to what she's capable of doing. And I'm telling you, I mean, I know she won a couple of group races there. Means nothing to me. She's never been a 1.5 miles. She hasn't been out since July. But I couldn't find another one I liked here, Jeremy. I mean, every horse that I looked at to say, okay, maybe I'll go with that one, there was a negative. Right. I don't know any negatives or positives about Australia Mia other than she won 9 races from 19 starts. But there's no money in Chile. So, again, who knows what she's beating. But with Frankie riding the race, and I don't think Michael McCarthy would be riding Frankie DeCoria unless he thought she was reasonably competitive, nor do I think he'd be running her 1.5 miles unless he thought she's fit. So that's where I went, as you did.
It took like 14 Google searches, but I finally found their replays. They were extremely difficult to find because they're listed under Santiago as the track in some of the searches. Every race I saw of hers, and I saw 3 or 4 of them, she was first or second early.
Good.
She wants to be forward, and there's really no speed in this race. I think that Tori's going to put her up near the front. She looks good on video. Her dam Andina was a Ben Cecil filly who ran in Southern California. She won the Osanitas at Del Mar, and it was a decent race mare by street sense. So it's an all-American pedigree, really. I mean, Andina was Irish bred, but there's pedigree to run here stateside and take a nice firm turf course like this. So I would assume Australia Mia is going to be forwardly placed under Frankie. And I liked her. I liked what I saw of her, and I don't like anybody else. I'm with you in the same way. Queen of the Temple, to me, is the other one. I did a little bet mix search. We don't get a lot of 1.5 mile turf races at Santa Anita, but Juan Hernandez has ridden in 6 of them. He's won 4.
Wow.
So mile and a half on the turf for Juan seems to work well here at Santa Anita. So Queen of the Temple, the other one in there that I'm putting in the mix. Australia Mia to win and exact the box with Queen of the Temple, the way I attacked the express bet race of the week this week. The Astra Stakes, named for the Polson mare. I think Simon Bray trained Astra.
That's correct. Yeah.
Did Bill Mott have it first and then Simon, or was it Simon all the way? But
I don't remember. But Simon had her when she was out here. And she was a stayer. And again, mile and a half on the grass. And you mentioned Queen of the Temple, who's still eligible to now winners of 2. But these mares don't get many opportunities out here in California to run a mile and a half. They run mile and an eighth, mile and a quarter, but not a mile and a half. So they're all going to be taking hold. And I did not have that ability to find any of her races. So, but if you're telling me if Australia Mears got speed, I tell Frankie, put her on the lead because nobody else from here is going to go. I can tell you that.
You know what they say about Chilean speed?
What do they say?
I don't know. I was just going to leave it at that. I hope she has it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I hope she has it here. That's going to wrap up our 8 stakes races here on the First Call podcast. Be sure to check out Express Bet this weekend, handicapping tournaments. We've got Beat the Host as well. A lot of great promos on the pick 4s, pick 5s, pick 6s around the First family of racetracks. So check out the promotions pages as well for everything this weekend. And the first Pegasus World Cup wager guide, soft launch this weekend. We've got all the contender bios up there, the stats and trends for the big races. And of course, after they draw on Sunday, we'll update the wager guide with handicapper picks from Jeff, Eddie Olczyk, myself, all the handicappers around the First family of tracks on the big race, expecting full fields for maybe all 3 of the Pegasus World Cup races, the Philly Mare Turf, the Turf, and the Pegasus World Cup. Right now are looking at potentially being full fields in all 3 races. We'll know after the draw on Sunday. I believe the draw on Sunday between the races early in the card or right before the card begins. So by 1, 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, we'll know everything, and past performances will be in our hands a few hours later to get to work on that. So looking forward to that, Jeff. Final thought for the weekend?
No, yeah, good week racing this weekend. Great racing the following weekend at Gulfstream Park. Can't wait for that. So let's see if we can make some money this week, build our bankroll, and the set to get down and dirty the following week, in which should be a terrific weekend of racing down in South Florida.
On behalf of everybody with First Technologies and my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Be sure to check out the Coast to Coast Pick 5 preview videos with Brian and Jeff throughout the course of the weekend, and send it in. We'll talk to you next week when we're knee deep in the Pegasus World Cup. Good luck, everybody.